Welcome to this first training session. Please wait for everything to load properly. I will be sitting here behind the console, controlling the flow and giving you instructions. Now these lessons are designed to be short and sweet, without overwhelming you with too many details, and generally focusing on one thing at a time. With the exception of a few like startup, shutdown, and landing, because those would be difficult to split into shorter lessons. Okay, remember, this is a simulator, so don't worry if you jack something up. In separate sessions, we'll cover all the basics like systems, procedures, and weapons. Alright, now let's begin with starting her up. You will be working your way around the cockpit starting from left to right. It might not necessarily be the order advised by our official manuals, but it's a time-sacred and battle-proven way of doing things, and you wouldn't like to be the one breaking tradition, right? On the left side, mic switch to on. Anti-collision lights to on. Position lights to 3. Set the conformal tank switch to the stop transfer position. Next, set both inlet ramp switches to auto. Okay, moving on. Turn on all 3 cast switches, yaw, roll, and pitch. Check that the anti-skid is in the norm, hook is up, landing gear handle is down, master arm is off, and jettison buttons are not pushed in. Set the oxygen switch to on. Your Wizzo had Mongolian barbecue last night and you don't want to be smelling that. Turn the left and right generator switches to on. Make sure that the emergency generator switch is in the auto position. Set the left and right engine control switches to on. JFS starter switch to on. Lift the covers on the left and right engine master switch. Set both switches to on. Place the covers back down. Set the ECS switch to auto. Without it, your avionics won't get any cooling and may shut down or even get damaged. Make sure that the bleed valves are set to both. Alright, now on to the actual engine start. Pull and release the JFS handle. The starter ready light has to come up within 10 seconds. Make sure to left click on the handle as right clicking will turn it. We're about to go to the warning system checks. I will continue with my instructions either after all the audible warnings are played, which will take some time, or after they are silenced with the DW tone silence switch. Press it now so that you are familiar with its location. Check the fire warning system by placing the fire extinguisher switch in the test position. AMAD fire lights should come on and an audible warning should be heard.
Warning, AMAD fire.
Let's move to the right engine start. Raise and release the finger lift on the right throttle. Wait for the engine monitor to come online, which will happen at around 15% RPM. Observe the engine indications and wait for it to stabilize at around 26%. Check the fire warning system again by placing the fire extinguisher switch in the test position.
Warning,
this time,
AMAD
AMAD
fire.
and both
Warning,
engine fire lights should come on.
fire left. Warning, engine fire left. Warning, engine fire right. Warning, engine fire right.
Now move the right throttle to the idle position to start pumping fuel to the engine. It takes around 10 seconds for the RPM to start raising further. At between 55 to 60%, the JFS will disengage, the main generator will come online, and the right ramp will drop down. You should once again check the fire warning system by pressing the fire extinguisher switch down.
Warning, AMAD, fire. Warning, engine, fire, left. Warning, engine, fire, left. Warning, engine, fire, right. Warning, engine, fire, right. AB burn through, left. AB burn through, left. AB burn through, right. AB burn through, right. Warning, AMAD, fire. Warning, AMAD, fire. Warning, engine, fire, left. Warning, engine, fire, left. Warning, engine, fire, right. Warning, engine, fire, right. AB burn through, left. AB burn through, left. AB burn through, right. AB burn through, right.
Now lock it by pushing the handle fully forward. Now it's time to start the left engine. Raise and release the finger lift on the left throttle. Again, watch the engine indications. When RPM reaches 26%, push the left throttle to idle. At around 60% RPM, the left ramp should drop down. By rotating the brightness knob clockwise. Turn on both radios by pushing the channel selector knobs. Turn on both MPDs and the MPCD. Turn on the HUD by cranking the brightness knob clockwise to the desired intensity. Check the warning and caution lights by pressing and holding the lights test switch. Let's move to the sensors panel now. Set the radar altimeter to on. Set the terrain following radar to standby. Set the radar knob to on. Turn on the nav FLIR switch. Set the INS alignment knob to GC align. A GC no taxi legend is now displayed on the HUD. The alignment process should take around 4 minutes. Let's set up the remaining lights. Vertical tail floodlight to on. And formation lights to 3. At this stage, you would perform a flight controls check, but you need a crew chief for that. We won't go ahead and pretend we have one, but I do encourage you to watch Not-So's startup video on the Razman channel to see how it should work. This is also a good moment to set up your screens and PAX programs, but both things will be covered by a separate training lesson. Okay, we're almost ready. Set the conformal tank switch back to transfer. Set the fuel knob to conformal tank's position. Check the total fuel quantity and set the bingo as desired, say to 3,000 pounds with the bingo fuel. uncage the standby attitude indicator. Normally you would also set the altimeter to the airfield elevation using the knob. Remember that standard setting is 2992, and you should set that whenever you pass the transition altitude in a specific FAA or ICAO region that you're operating in. Alright, check that the GC OK is displayed on the HUD, and if it is, turn the INS knob to nav.
哇，我哪会那么容易掉下来嘞？夜里你才会掉下来啊！这校准说实在的，快吗？算慢的呢，怎么办？还要等20秒。啊，好麻烦。哎，不止哦，超过20秒。看，不要检举啦！我做了什么？我什么都没做啊！检举什么？按赞啦，按赞比较好，按赞那个比较香啊！按那个赞下去，有没有？把那个按赞往上那个按赞，把它按下去，有没有？然后那个小铃铛按下去，那个订阅按下去，哎，有没有？那个比较香，啊，这个还好啦。对，检举不香啊，检举不香。校正完。
And that's it. In the next lesson, we'll cover taxi and takeoff procedures. I also promise that from now on, these lessons will be much shorter and more to the point, keeping them at 10 minutes maximum.
所以结束了。OK。投诉替代订阅，不要我。别哦！我怎么了？我究竟怎么了？我做了什么
？Welcome back. Please wait for the mission to load properly. Today you will practice taxiing, taking off, and climbing in the F-15E. And no, I don't mean climbing into the striking, but rather getting to the desired altitude as efficiently as possible. I've loaded the mission with the aircraft hot on the parking spot and ready for taxi. Okay, first release the parking brake. Slightly advance the throttle, and as the aircraft starts to roll, test the toe brakes. Now, advance the throttle again, and as the aircraft starts rolling, steer left and right to check the nose wheel steering. Then stop again. Check all the warning and caution lights. Normally you would contact the tower and request taxi clearance, so let's assume I just did. We'll taxi to runway 23 left. Gently push the throttles, taxi out, and turn left. your turn right by pressing and holding the nose wheel steering button on the stick. Try it now.
小林，你怎么很孤单的在这边啊？
没办法呀，我就没朋友没，
Remember that an aircraft is
不
light.
然
It
我
will
能
have a
怎么
tendency to accelerate
我
even
才
with
在
very
弗莱
little
西
power.
飞了一
If it's
阵
heavy, you
子
should
啊。
perform all turns at minimum practical speed.
没有，事无意，你自己研究，我真的没有要飞它。
没差，我就慢慢来。15E飞起来感觉好奇怪哦。
飞起来感觉哦，因为15E它不是 fly by wire 的飞机啦，所以它还是要调配比。
Okay, stop here. Now re-engage the parking brake. Confirm the inlet ramp switches are in auto.
对，所以小林，现在你是用摇杆在赛事在用吗？
Check that the ejection control safety lever is armed.
我现在用 Xbox 啊。
哦，Xbox 摇杆
Check。for free and correct flight control movements.
我只觉得你这样子15E飞有点平哦。
Make sure that the flap switch is set to down. Now push the takeoff trim button and hold it until the light turns on and an audible warning is heard.
Yaw rate. Yaw rate.
Check that the canopy is closed and locked. Now turn on the radar by placing the knob in the on position. Set the pitot and engine heat switches as required. If you don't expect icing conditions, you can leave the engine heat off. Check that the INS knob is set to nav. Landing light on. With that, you're ready to enter the active runway. Again, normally you would request clearance from the tower before doing so. Release the parking brake. Enter the runway and try and line up down the center line. Apply the toe brakes and hold them. And this is why you should never skip leg day at the gym. Advance the throttles to 82% and check the instrument and warning caution lights. Also, verify the engine monitor display and check that the FTIT and fuel pressure rise above idle. Fuel flow is above 4,000 pounds per hour and nozzle position is around 20% open. Satisfied, release the brakes and advance throttles to mill or max power, depending on the gross weight of the aircraft. As you reach rotation speed, right about now, gently pull the stick until the W symbol on the HUD intercepts the 10-degree line on the pitch ladder. If the nose wants to go up, trim it down until you're happy. Raise your gear. And flaps. Climb out keeping 350 knots indicated airspeed until you reach 0.90
OK， 下一张。
Back. Please wait for everything to load properly. I have paused the simulation so you can fully focus on the task at hand. Today we will learn how to take command displays in the front cockpit. Give me a second to set everything up properly. There, that's better. The process itself is very simple. You will be using the castle switch on your stick. Yes, the very stick you can't see on the screen to do that. You can take command of the HUD, left MPD, right MPD, and the bottom NPC. Let's start with the displays. To take control of the NPD or NPC, press and hold the castle switch on your stick in the direction of the display you want to use until 4 short vertical lines show at the bottom of the given screen. Feel free to practice as I talk about the details. So as an example, to take control of the air-to-air radar on the left NPD, hold the castle switch left until the command marks appear. If you want to control the planner pod, currently displayed on the MPCD, hold the castle switch aft. Chances are that you already messed something up, and now you can see the Tactical Electronic Warfare System, or TAPC in short, on the right MPD and ADI on the MPC. That's because you short press the castle switch right and or aft, respectively. Use the push button 11 to bring up the menu, and then select AG radar again on the right MPD and TTP on ADI. Not all displays can be commanded. Those that provide information only, like the engine page or HSI, will cooperate, and neither will HUD repeatedly. Speaking of which, taking command of the HUD is a little different. Let me know when you're happy with the MPDs, and yeah, I know it's not rocket science, and are ready to move on to the HUD. Alright, so to take command of the HUD, you have to first press the castle switch down. Down, not aft, Mike. And then short push it forward. If you do this correctly, you'll see the in command queue just above the Mach number on the left side of the
Damn. What the fuck? Castle. What?
If you don't, you'll notice that you're changing the master mode between air-to-air and air-ground, because this is what happens when you just push the castle switch forward without properly pressing it down first. It all seems straightforward, but it takes some time getting used to. So go ahead and practice. In the next lesson, we will go a bit deeper into the displays and learn how to program them and set them up for various master modes.
What？ 大小。看看啊。Alright, so take command of a hub. You have to first press castle switch down. Castle switch down. 我把它设定到哪个按键啊？靠背啊。他没有呢，怎么搞？ 没有呢。好。What the fuck? Switch down. 三小。故意吗？没有啊，不是啊。What？ 别！我完全没有会呢。
Welcome back. Please wait for everything to load properly. I have paused the simulation so you can fully focus on the task at hand. Today we will learn how to take command of displays in the front cockpit. Give me a second to set everything up properly. There, that's better. The process itself is very simple. You will be using the castle switch on your stick. Yes, the very stick you can't see on the screen to do that. You can take command of the HUD, left MPD, right MPD, and the bottom NPC. Let's start with the displays. To take control of the NPD or NPC, press and hold the castle switch on your stick in the direction of the display you want to use until 4 short vertical lines show at the bottom of the given screen. Feel free to practice as I talk about the details. So as an example, to take control of the air-to-air radar on the left NPD, hold the castle switch left until the command marks appear. If you want to control the planner pod, currently displayed on the MPCD, hold the castle switch aft. Chances are that you already messed something up, and now you can see the Tactical Electronic Warfare System, or TAPC in short, on the right NPD and ADI on the NPCD. That's because you short press the castle switch right and or aft, respectively. Use the push button 11 to bring up the menu, and then select AG radar again on the right NPD and TGP on ADI. Not all displays can be commanded. Those that provide information only, like the engine page or HSI, will cooperate, and neither will HUD repeat. Speaking of which, taking command of the HUD is a little different. Let me know when you're happy with the MPDs, and yeah, I know it's not rocket science, and are ready to move on to the HUD. Alright, so to take command of the HUD, you have to first press the castle switch down, not aft, mind you, and then short push it forward.
Damn， 不是你吗？你吗？
If you do this correctly, you'll see the in command queue just above the Mach number on the left side of the HUD. If you don't, you'll notice that you're changing the master mode between air-to-air and air-ground, because this is what happens when you just push the castle switch forward without properly pressing it down first. It all seems straightforward, but takes some time getting used to. So go ahead and practice. In the next lesson, we'll go a bit deeper into the displays and learn how to program them and set them up for various master modes.
What the 啊？什么叫做啊 castle down？ 我就没看到 Castle Down 这个东西啊，哪一个 ？Price 吗？我在 Good job， 我根本不知道怎么控制 Hop， 根本不知道怎么控制啊！你就这么直接给跑掉啦 ？What the fuck, man？ 好，我不懂，嗯。啊？啊？现在怎样？You have to press the cursor down. Show press it forward. If the correct, we will see in command queue all the max number of lives. 所以是，我这是成功的意思吗？好像是呢。呜呼，好，下一个。
Training mission in which we will cover programming and scrolling through MPDs and MPCDs. Please wait for everything to load properly. A very handy feature of the Strike Eagle is the ability to program all of the displays, which will allow you to switch through them with a flick of a finger, literally. On top of that, you can set them up specifically for each master mode, but we'll cover that in a different lesson. Let's say we want to have navigation-related data on the left NP. Go ahead and press push button 11 to access the menu 1 page. To program the displays, you have to box the program legend above push button 6. Press it now. With program boxed, you can choose 3 displays across all 3 menus and set them up in any order you like. Except, since I'm the instructor today, we're going to set them up the way I like. Anyway, to do so, simply press the push buttons next to the displays you want to program. Select HSI as your first screen with push button 3. You see that your selection and its sequence number is now displayed in the middle of the screen. Next, select 2s with push button 13. Third, press ADI with push button 1. On second thought, 2s is not that useful for navigation. Fortunately, it's very easy to deselect any of the screens. Just press their respective push button once again. 13 in this case. Do it now. 2s disappeared from the list. Note that ADI did not move up. You just have a free slot number 2. Let's fill it with tactical situation display. Push button 5. To leave programming mode, simply press push button 6 to unbox the program legend. Good. Now let's move to the right NPD, where we'll set up our radars and weapons. Press push button 11 to bring up the menu. Now press push button 6 to enter programming mode. First select air-to-air radar with push button 15. Next select air-to-ground radar with push button 14. Third, I want you to add the air-to-ground delivery page, which is under menu 2. Therefore, you need to press push button 11 first to access it. Now press push button 2 to fill up the list. Good. Deselect program with push button 6. Finally, the MPCD. Let's get that stick out. That's better. Enter the menu by pressing push button 11. Now enable programming with push button 6. Select T-Pod, 2s, and Arma pages in any order you like. Good. Deselect program by pressing push button 6. Now let's move on to the last part of this lesson, where we talk about scrolling through programmed displays. You do this by short pressing the castle switch towards the display you want to change. For the left NPD, each actuation of the castle switch left will move you through your program displays in sequence from 1 to 3 and then back to 1. Try it now. Right NPD, the first actuation will bring up the 2s page. Subsequent ones will scroll through the displays you set up. Note that if there's a pause longer than 5 seconds between presses, the next one will bring up the 2s page again. For the MPCD, the first actuation of the castle switch down bring up the ADI page. Then things will work just like the right MPD. Very good. That's it for this lesson. Setting up the displays the way you want them in both the front and the back seat, which we'll cover in another lesson, reduces the workload. It makes it easier for you to stay in front of the jet when things start getting dicey out there. To one of the three master modes, air-to-air, air-to-ground, and nav. Being in the correct master mode is necessary to be able to use some of the jet's functions, but what we're about to learn today is just a handy shortcut to make your office much tidier and your work much more efficient. Let me first prepare everything, then we'll talk about how to set up your displays, and finally, how to use them in practice. In order to program the displays to specific master modes, you first have to program 3 pages for each display, just like we did in the previous lesson. Give me a second to do just that. Once I'm ready, we'll move on. Alright, first the basics. To enable master mode programming, you first need to press push button 6 to box the program legend. The numbers reappear next to already selected displays. Now press push button 7 once to select the air-to-air programming mode. Air-to-air legend appeared just below the master mode, and you are now ready to assign one of the 3 pre-selected displays on the left MPD to the air-to-air master mode. This means that each time you select this mode, that one particular page will always show up on the left MPD. Go ahead and choose air-to-air radar with push button 15. Very good. Air-to-air appeared next to the number 2 in the middle of the screen. On to the next mode. Press push button 7 again. Air-to-ground is now displayed, and this is the master mode we will be programming now. Choose TSD with push button 5. Good. Air-to-ground is now also visible next to number 3 in the middle of the screen. Finally, time for the nav master mode. Press push button 7 once more. Nav appeared below the master mode legend. Let's assign HSI to it by pressing push button 3. Now exit the programming mode by pressing push button 6. Program will become unboxed. Very good. Now we'll repeat the process for the right MPD. Box the program legend there. Good. Now enable master mode programming by pushing push button 7. Air-to-air master mode appears, but you're free to switch between the modes as you see fit. Press push button 7 again to enable air-to-ground first. Now select air-to-ground radar. Press push button 7 to choose nav master mode. Assign tactical situation display to nav. Select air-to-air master mode by pressing push button 7 again. It looks like we deselected master mode programming as we cycle through all 3 modes. Press push button 7 once more. We will will assign the armament page to air-to-air on this MPD. We're done with the right display. Deselect the program. Finally, let's move to the MPCD. Again, box the program legend by pressing push button 6. Now enable master mode programming. For the air-to-air, we'll want to assign the 2s. Press push button 7 again to select air-to-ground. Just like with the basic MPD programming, you're not confined to menu 1. Let's assign air-to-ground delivery displays from menu 2. Select push button 11 to enter it. Now press push button 2 to program air-to-ground delivery under air-to-ground master mode. Press push button 7 to switch to nav master mode. Return to menu 1 by pressing push button 11. This is menu 3. You can easily tell where you are by looking at the legend next to push button 11, which now says M. And if the legend says M, that means you're in menu 3. If it says M2, you're in menu 1. And if it says M3, you're in menu 2. Very intuitive. Really? You think so?
Nope.
Okay, but in fact, actually it is. The legend shows you which menu you will enter upon pushing push button 11, which means you should do it once again to enter menu 1. Let's assign ADI to nav master mode. Press push button 1. Deselect programming with push button 6. Okay, on to the grand finale. Time to reap the fruit of all the hard work of pressing those push buttons. Go ahead and select the air-to-ground master mode. And lo and behold, with one push of a button, you have all 3 displays showing pages which you have programmed. It pays off to spend some time on the ground to set them up, because it saves precious seconds later in the air, when things are happening a lot faster. Choose the nav master mode. You now have the HSI on the left display, TSD on the right, and ADI on the MPCD. The icing on the cake is that you're still able to normally scroll through the display contents using short presses of the castle switch left, right, and aft. Try it now. Okay, enough of that. Now select the air-to-air master mode.
What? 他刚刚在动哎。
You're back to the pre-programmed view again. Okay, that more or less covers the general MPD, MPCD knowledge, and concludes this lesson. Alright, welcome to this training mission. Please wait for everything to load correctly. This time, we will look at the radios in the F-15E Strike Eagle and how to use them properly. I assume by now you've read the relevant parts of the manual, so we won't be talking about the capabilities of the radios or their frequency ranges. Now, before we proceed, I also strongly suggest that you map the HOTUS mic forward and the HOTUS mic aft switches. These will be used to transmit and receive on the pry, left radio in the forward position, and the aux, right radio in the aft position. Let me know when you have that done.
Really？ 这个也要设定 hot test， 这么好 ？Fine, whatever。
First thing first, turning on the radios. The status of the radios is displayed next to push button 5 and 6. You should currently see an off indication there. There are several ways to turn on the radios. By using the radio submenu push button 1, by inputting a preset channel, introducing a manual frequency, or, and this is really the easiest one, by simply pushing both channel select knobs. Do this now. With power applied to the radios, you can see asterisks before channel numbers next to the knobs you just pushed. Manual frequencies are now displayed above them next to push buttons 5 and 6. You can use each radio either in the preset channel mode or the manual frequency mode. The asterisk indicates which mode is currently active.
Scattered.
To switch between them, you have to use the GREC CM buttons on the UFC. Each press of the button moves the asterisk between manual and preset frequencies. Go ahead and press the left GREC button to switch to manual frequency on the left radio. Dude, seriously? Good! The asterisk has jumped and now the left radio, which we call pry, is working in the manual frequency mode. Press the left GREC button again to return to the preset channel mode.
是不是刚刚想骂我？
Turning the channel selector knob is the easiest way to jump from one channel to another, especially if they're close. As an example, going from channel 1 to channel 3. Now use the left knob and switch to channel 5 on UHF to tune to the ATIS station.
Visibility greater than 10 miles.
Good. You can increase and decrease the volume using the smaller volume knob. Go ahead and completely silence the ATIS for the time
Altimeter
being.
3002. Runway
Another handy way of switching between channels is entering the desired number on the scratch pad and then pressing the respective channel selector knob.
What?
Let's switch to channel 10 on aux, so the right radio, press 1 on the UFC. Now press 0. And push the right channel knob. You should now hear distant radio comms for air-to-air refueling operations. Good. There will be moments during the missions when you will be called to switch to a frequency which was not pre-programmed on the ground and requires a manual input. Actually, it will happen quite often knowing Baltic Dragon. All the time, really. To enter a manual frequency, simply type it on the UFC. The decimals are not required. And press push button 5 for the left radio or 6 for the right one. Let's try with the simple 251 for the aux radio. Press 2 on the UFC, followed by 5, and then, you guessed it, 1.
What?
And now, press push button 6.
What? Hold on. 我好像搞砸了。I fuck up.
To be able to transmit and receive on the manual frequency, we should first enable it by pushing the right GREC button. Do it now.
Hey everyone, Wags here from the Olympics, and in this DCS
Hey, it's Wags. Anyway, let's continue with the lesson. For now, turn down the volume on the aux radio. Now, take a look at the bottom line on the UFC display. You should see the previous frequency sitting right in the middle of that line. This is a very neat feature allowing you to quickly jump back to whatever channel or frequency you had before by simply pressing push button 6 again. Do that now. One more thing we should cover is the guard monitoring frequency. The military air distress frequency is 243.0, and the Strike Eagle is capable of monitoring it in the background irrespective of what channel or frequency it is currently using. In order to enable guard monitoring, you have to first press the shift button on the UFC, and then press the GREC button for the radio you want to monitor guard on. Let's use the left one. Press shift, and left GREC, letter G should now be shown behind the frequency in the fourth line on the UFC display. This means that the pry is now monitoring guard. Crank up the volume a little bit, please. Whatever. To disable guard monitoring, follow exactly the same procedure. One last thing we should cover briefly is the dedicated radio menu. They are different for both radios, but for now, there is only one important thing you should learn, and that is for the aux. To enter the radio submenu, the scratch pad needs to be clean. Just to be on the safe side, press the clear button twice. Chances are that everything went black on the UFC, so press the menu button once to bring it back.
Ooh.
Now press push button 6 to enter the aux radio submenu. You can check what most of the options do, or don't do in the manual. Frankly, most of them don't do anything important, but one important feature here is the ability to switch from the alpha mic frequency to the Fox mic frequency. To do this, press the push button 9 where it says Man AM. It should now say Man-FM. We'll now type in the frequency, and remember that for aux in FM mode, you need to use the decimals. Press 3. Now press 1. Decimal. 2. And press push button 6 to introduce the manual FM frequency. Good. Crank up the volume a little bit, please. That sounds good. Alright, that concludes this training lesson. Well done.
这就没了。OK。
Welcome to this training mission, in which we will talk about the basics of navigation in the F-15E. As always, please wait for everything to load properly. I pause the sim so that we can go through all the basic concepts. When we finish, I'll unpause and let you fly the jet. First order of business is to set up your displays. bring up the ADI on your left MPD by pressing push button 11 to enter the menu. And then push button 1. On the right MPD, set up your HSI by pressing push button 11. Followed by push button 3. The tactical situation display is already displayed on the MPCD. Alright, now switch to the nav master mode. Let's start with the Tactical Situation Display, or TSD, on the MPCD. As the name implies, it's very useful for showing you your exact position on the moving map and displaying the current flight plan. Your aircraft is marked with a cross, and you will notice that there are different shapes for the steer points, which we will cover in more detail in a separate lesson. The ADI, or the Attitude Director Indicator on the left MPD, is your artificial horizon, which also duplicates some of the data shown on your HUD, like the heading scale and the command book at the top. The Horizontal Situation Indicator, or HSI, on the right MPD, is the main display used for navigation. It also allows the aircrew to switch between different steering modes, most of which are also coupled with the autopilot, a matter to be discussed in greater detail in other lessons. In this sortie, we will focus on the nav steering mode, which is selected by pressing push button 10. Just above it, you can see the nav data block, which displays your currently selected steer point, bearing and distance to it in nautical miles, as well as time to go marked with an E, or estimated time of arrival marked with A. The currently selected steer point, 1 alpha in this case, is visible on the screen provided that it is within the display range shown between PB16 and 17. Our nav data block tells us that steer point 1A is 57 nautical miles away, so we need to increase the range by pressing PB16. Do it now. Note that only the selected steer point is shown on the HSI, and there's no way to view a full sequence of points here, unlike on the TSD. However, it is possible to simultaneously have both the current steer point and TACAN station displayed on the screen. To turn on the TACAN, have a look at the UFC. Our TACAN is currently set to off, which is indicated by the legend next to menu button 2. Let's tune it to Katasi by typing 44 into the scratch pad. Press 4. And 4 once again. Good, now press menu button 2. The TACAN symbol should have appeared on the HSI about your 1 o'clock. Okay, time to learn how to change the steer points. Unlike many other aircraft, there is no HOTUS button that can switch between them. Instead, you'll have to use the UFC or rely on the auto sequencing mode, which we will cover in a moment. The currently selected steer point is displayed next to menu button 10. In order to change it, simply type the number of the new steer point on the UFC. In this case, press 2. Well done. Now enter it by pushing menu button 10. Steer point number 2 is now visible on the HSI, or rather, would be visible, but the range scale is set too high and it sits on top of the TACAN symbol. Press push button 17 3 times to bring the scale down all the way to 10 nautical miles. Good. Now you should see 2 arrows on the outside of the compass rose. The one with the line in the middle is your TACAN bearing pointer. The other one, sitting on top of the 2 squares, is the nav bearing pointer. The squares are your command heading marker, which in the nav mode is aligned with the steer point, with bearing shown next to the command heading legend. In other steering modes, command heading can be moved around using push buttons 1 and 2, or by using the UFC keyboard to type the desired value. Another important feature is the automatic sequencing option. When boxed, it will cause the steer point to switch to the next one as soon as the aircraft passes over it or crosses the 39 line within 2 nautical miles of it. Let's see how it works in practice. In a moment, I'll unpause the sim. will fly towards the TACAN station, but without selecting it as our nav source. In other words, keep the nav mode boxed. Ready? Okay, turn towards the TACAN. Disregard steering cues on the HUD, and keep the TACAN bearing pointer on the lubber line on the HSI. As sequence point 2 is less than 2 miles away from the station, it should automatically change once you cross its 3-9 line without having to pass directly overhead. Okay, we have switched to sequence point 3. Now have a look at the TSD. You'll note that it's marked with a square and not with a circle, as was the case with previous points. That's because waypoint 4 is a target point, indicated by a triangle, which makes the waypoint immediately before it an ingress point, denoted by a square. Last thing I want to cover in this introduction is selecting target points as your current steer point. Target points are denoted by a number, followed by a dot, and this is what you have to type on the UFC keyboard. Press 4, followed by a dot, and now push menu button 10. Good. I know I said this will be the last thing, but let's have a quick look at the UFC options before we finish. You're now looking at menu 1, but the most important ones for navigation are Data 1 and Data 2, accessed using the, you guessed it, Data button. Press it once. This is the Data 1 menu, which provides you with a lot of interesting information and options. The first one is the distance and bearing to the currently selected sequence point, mirroring the information displayed in the nav block on the HUD and the HSI. Next is your estimated time of arrival, which you can easily change in estimated time en route by pressing menu button 2. Try it now. The third is the option to display true airspeed on the HUD below the indicated airspeed. Turn it on now. You can also choose to show the ground speed instead, which is probably more useful, by pushing menu button 4. Try it now. As you can see, you cannot display both the true airspeed and the ground speed at the same time. You can have either one of the two or none. Moving on, current wind speed and direction is displayed next to menu button 7. Above it, you can see the Zulu time. Moving up is your radar altitude. Pressing menu button 9 allows you to display it on the HUD. Do it now. Finally, the currently selected steer point. When you press it, you'll enter a sequence point sub-menu. What are you waiting for? Good. This sub-menu offers you detailed information about the current and any other sequence points you choose. It also allows you to add new sequence points, change existing ones, and even go deeper and open several other sub-menus, which we'll cover in a separate lesson. And that's it for today. We really only scratched the surface of all you need to know about navigation in this lesson, but it should be enough to get you going, especially if you have a competent Wizzo in the back seat guiding you along. Welcome to this training mission, in which we will talk about the basics of the air-to-air radar in the F-15 Strike Eagle. Please wait for the mission to load properly. I'm not going to waste your time with a technical description for all of the data on the AN/APG-70 radar and its capabilities. You can find all that in the manual. Instead, let's jump directly into the jet and learn the most important aspects of the radar in the air-to-air mode. You can see that the air-to-air radar screen is already displayed on the left MPD. You should also see two contacts, likely denoted by a triangle, at roughly 40 and 25 nautical miles respectively off your nose. You can easily tell the distance to a contact at a glance by referencing the currently selected radar scale, in this case 80 miles, as indicated by the number in the top right corner and the horizontal lines on the display. Each of them equals a quarter of the selected scale. Therefore, for 80 miles, they'll show 20, 40, and 60 miles respectively, going from the bottom to the top. To change the scale, you'll use the TDC controller on your throttle, which allows you to move the target acquisition symbol currently sitting in the middle of the screen. However, to be able to do that, you have to first take command of your radar. Do it now by pressing and holding the castle switch left. Good. You are now in command. To increase or decrease the range, simply move the acquisition symbol to the top or the bottom edge of the screen. Please try it now and let me know when you set the scale to 20 nautical miles. You should now see a small arrow at the very top of the display indicating that one of the contacts detected by the radar is outside the currently selected scale. As you move the acquisition symbol around the screen, there are several moving parts. We should have a closer look at it. In the top left, the two changing numbers are bearing in range in nautical miles from your aircraft to the location of the acquisition symbol. The two hollow dots along the left side of the screen are called the radar beam altitude coverage circles and show the maximum and minimum altitude that the radar beam is covering with the current settings. The digital readout of these altitudes is constantly shown next to the acquisition symbol. You will notice that the further away you move the acquisition symbol from your jet, the higher the coverage, and vice versa. But while the distance is an important factor here, there are at least two other things that play an even greater role, which are the number of bars and elevation of the antenna. The number of bars can be set to 1, 2, 4, 6, or 8 using push button 2. As you increase this number, you'll notice that the antenna elevation scale, the two hollow dots, get further away from one another, thus allowing for greater vertical coverage. The downside, however, is it takes longer for the radar to complete full sweep. Antenna elevation can be changed using the wheel on the throttle. Move it up and down and see how the values for minimum and maximum coverage change. The green elevation caret on the left side of the screen shows the angle at which the antenna is currently pointing. Go ahead and play with the elevation and number of bars for a while. We've talked about the vertical coverage. Now let's have a quick look at how wide the normal beam is. In normal mode, it covers 120 degrees in front of the aircraft, but it's possible to narrow it down to 60 degrees using a method called azimuth bumping. To azimuth bump, simply move the acquisition symbol to the left or the right edge of the screen. You'll notice that the 2 dots at the bottom of the display are closer and can be moved left and right using the TDC. Note that it only works in SRM and MRM modes. Finally, to return to full 120 degree scan, move the TDC once again to the left or right edge of the screen. Take a moment to play with those options.
没有啊，骗我！没有啊，它没办法变啊。
Alright, now set the full coverage, bars to 4, elevation to 0, and scale to 80. Let me know when you're ready to move on. should again see two contacts on the screen at roughly 25 and 40 miles. Go ahead and place the acquisition symbol above the one closer to your aircraft. Number 19 should appear next to the contact, indicating its altitude. If you do the same for the one further away, it should show 31 or so. You'll also notice that both contacts become brighter on certain sweeps of the radar and stay dark for others. They will light up only when painted by the beam, as it sweeps through a bar corresponding to their altitude. If the bar is too low or too high, they'll remain dark. The number of frames dark contact remain on the screen can be changed using push button 3. Go ahead and see how it works. The last important setting is the pulse repetition frequency, or PRF, which can be set to high, medium, or interleaved by pressing push button 6. In the simplest possible terms, the high PRF is mainly used for seeing hot, nose-on contacts, whereas medium is best for seeing maneuvering targets or targets that are not nose-on. Interleaved constantly alternates between the two. Okay, time to lock one of those targets and enter the single target track or STT mode. To do so, move the acquisition symbol over the desired contact.
我完全不知道这是他在讲什么东西，太棒了。
The radar will enter a mini raster mode, and if it scores enough hits on the target, it acquires a lock. Let me know when you've achieved that. Several new symbols should now be visible on the radar screen and on the HUD. Starting with the HUD, you should see the target designation box at the location of the locked target. To the right, you have a range scale with lots of weird symbols you don't have to worry about at this stage, as we'll cover them on some other day. The changing number on the left side of the scale is the closure, or VC rate. The target's altitude and digital range are displayed to the right. Similar information can be found on the radar screen. The target is denoted as a star with a heading vector or a flake symbol.
你要买给我吗？求赞助啊！求抖内啊！
Altitude is displayed at the left edge of the display, and closure rate and range scale are shown along its right edge. Now, to drop the lock, simply depress the automatic acquisition switch. Do it now.
把它设定在。
Very good. Okay, the last thing will be a little practice in using the radar settings to find and lock a helicopter that's circling at 5,000 feet over the water, around 15 nautical miles away from us. Set the bars to 4, scale to 20, and PRF to medium, and position the antenna to cover the minimum altitude of 2,000 feet. Can you see the radar signature of the helo? No? And no wonder. The helicopter is a slow-moving target, and as such, it's difficult to pick up by the radar. But don't worry, as the smart people over at Raytheon added the option called GMTR, or Ground Moving Target Rejection, to help us in situations just like this one.
即使我没巨轮，你也赞助嘛，对不对？这边抖了一下。
The downside, allowing more ground clutter and false targets appearing on the screen. The GMTR setting can be changed by using push button 4. Press it 3 times to set the GMTR to low. If the elevation is set correctly, you should start seeing some returns. If you move the acquisition symbol, you'll see their altitude, some of them at -1, 0, or 1. You should ignore them as ground clutter and continue searching ahead of you for one flying at 4,000 to 5,000 feet. feel free to decrease the number of bars and closely watch the digital altitude readout. Your goal now is to lock that helo. Let me know when you've done this. Well done. I mean, relatively well done, considering you didn't have to fly the jet because the sim was paused. You didn't have 1,000 other things you normally would, but still not bad. Thank God during the real sortie you'll have a Wizzo who will be doing this job for you.
他射了，我莫名其妙射了。好，随便了。下一个。
In this training mission, we will be covering the basics of using the F-15E Strike Eagle's radar capabilities in the air-to-ground mode. As usual, sit back and relax while everything loads properly. The air-to-ground radar is a very powerful tool which you can use for building situational awareness, getting accurate representation of the target area at long distances, marking points of interest, designating targets, updating your INS, and more. Don't expect to learn all of it during this mission. Today we're only covering the basics. The first thing to do is to bring up the air-to-ground radar on one of the MPDs. Please note that it's not possible to use it on the MPCD. Enter the air-to-ground radar page on the left MPD and let me know when you're ready to proceed. Good. Now take command of your radar, long pressing the castle switch left. Okay, the radar is now working, painting the picture of the terrain ahead of you. You can also see the range rings, though this time they're curved, so this is different than our air-to-air radar. First thing I want you to do is to increase the range using push button 14. You should see sequence points from your current flight plan superimposed over the radar screen. You can turn them off using the declutter option, available via push button 2. Go ahead and do that now. Good. Now bring them back in again. You can instantly move the cursor between the sequence points using push button 17 or by pulling coolie switch up short. Please use the coolie switch to cycle through all the available sequence points, which means only those that are within the radar field of view. You will notice that doing so slews the cursor to the currently selected sequence point, and then, after the last available point, switches it back over to the center of the screen. You can also freely move the cursor around the display using the TDC. As you do this, you'll notice several things happening on the screen. Numbers in the top left corner are azimuth and range to the cursor position. This is different than the air-to-air radar mode, where an actual compass bearing from the nose is shown. The ALT legend below gives you the minimum and maximum altitude covered by the beam with the given antenna position. Elevation can be changed using the wheel and the throttle, and it has a huge impact on what you will see on the screen. ALT is typically only used or needed for detecting weather. As an example, place the cursor over waypoint 3 and raise the antenna. The caret on the elevation scale will start moving up, and as the minimum and maximum coverage altitude increase, you'll start seeing less and less of a map until nothing more is displayed, because the beam is now looking above even the highest terrain features. Now move the antenna all the way down. You'll first see the full radar map, but will soon start shrinking closer and closer to your aircraft as the antenna paints the area nearer to you until it's looking almost directly down. Remember that you can easily check what is the min and max coverage in any part of the screen by moving the cursor there and checking the ALT reading. Okay, time to move to a different ground radar mode. You currently are in RBM, or Real Beam Map mode, as indicated by the legend above push button 6. The RBM provides low resolution ground mapping and weather detection capability. Press the push button to move to the next mode. GMT is the ground moving target mode, which displays moving targets on the radar screen as crosses. Note that it can also be interleaved with the RBM, which we will cover in a different lesson. Press the push button 6. HRM is a high-resolution map, and this is where the air-to-ground radar really shines. This mode allows you to build pretty accurate pictures of a small area at large distances and fully deserves a separate lesson. So for the time being, let's move on. Press push button 6. PVU stands for Precision Velocity Update Mode, and it's a very useful function to quickly and accurately update the INS, or the Mission Navigator velocities, which in turn is important for building good quality, high-resolution maps. Obviously we couldn't use it now, since the sim's paused and we're not moving, but the process itself is pretty straightforward. Okay, press the push button 6 once more to return to RBM mode, and we'll move on to cover another important topic, which are the different cursor functions. These can be changed using push button 7, and the default one here is map. It is part of the HRM functionality and will be covered elsewhere. Suffice to say, this option allows you to build an HRM patch map of a certain area covering between 80 and less than 1 nautical mile. The size of the patch is chosen using push button 8. Press push button 7 now and we'll move on. Position update cursor function is used when the aircrew needs to perform a position update to either the MN Mission Navigator or the INS from the Real Beam map. Press push button 7 again. Using the target cursor function, the aircrew can designate any point on the Real Beam map or high resolution map for weapons delivery. To do so, simply press the TDC at the location of your choosing. You'll see a triangle with a line extending from it and a designate legend below. We'll cover target designation in detail in another lesson. Press push button 7 once more. The Q cursor function directs or commands a sensor, such as a lantern, to a selected point on the radar display. Press the push button 7 one last time. Finally, the mark cursor function will let the aircrew place mark points on the radar map for future reference. You can have a maximum of 10 mark points, and each new one above 10 will overwrite the first one. Go ahead and place a few by pressing the TDC. A small triangle with a number will appear. You can display a maximum of 5 mark points at a time. Let me know when you're ready to move on. Okay, push button 9 allows the aircrew to choose the desired antenna azimuth scan. In full mode, the radar covers 100 degrees in front of the jet, but this can be changed to half, 50 degrees, or quarter, 25 degrees. Press push button 9 once. You are now in the 50-degree scan, and you should see that the area covered by the radar has changed. You can position the scan on the cursor by moving the cursor to another part of the screen. As soon as it stops moving, the area around it will be scanned by the radar. Alright, I'll unpause the mission and let you digest all the new things we just covered. And don't worry, because most of the time your wizard will be doing all that work while you focus on keeping the jet steady for him. Which reminds me that we should cover the autopilot modes pretty soon.
Over G, over G, over G, over G, over G, over G, over G,
pull up.
over G.
Holy fuck.
altitude, low altitude.
Alright, I just loaded your new flight plan into the nav system. Head over to waypoint 1. Our friends here in Georgia were kind enough to let us fly their low-level route while we're here visiting. Let's show them what we can do. Stay within the corridor. It's about 1 mile either side of the route center line. If you follow the valley, you'll be good. The course needs to be slowed at or below 500 ATL. Don't let this speed get below 450 knots. They do this course in their SC-25, so let's show them how fast the fighter can be. Oh, it's low Mach 1 though. You don't want to spoil the goodwill. Now get set up. I expect good numbers out of you. Starting the timer at the valley entrance.
Low altitude, low altitude.
Here we go.
Low
Clock's running.
altitude, low altitude. Over G, over G, over G, over G.
Wonder how many squirrels you just gave a heart attack to. Watch your speed. Now you're just pissing off the locals as well as cheating. I'm not counting your time on this one.
Over G, over G. Low altitude. 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 Over G. Over G. Low altitude. 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 Over G. Over G. Over G. Over G. Low altitude. Low altitude. Over G. 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 Low altitude. Low altitude. Over G. Over G. Low altitude. Low altitude. Low altitude.
靠！很厉害啊，这转换能力吓死人！这个根本就是可以闪电机动的。啊，累了，学了一个下午，快一个下午，好累哦。看，玩个游戏而已，玩得好累哦。哦，我的头好痛啊！先去休息一下啊！我累死了，看，好多东西要学哦。哇！啊，休息一下，脑袋快挂掉了。哦，不行， 看 F-15E 真的太多东西要学了。看，而且我只有一个X85把，怎么玩？一堆按键，哇！先这样，我先去休息，快挂了。进广告，没的广告啊！我也想要广告，求赞助，求广告啊！有没有广告商啊？地形合成雷达，对啊，它的雷达系统跟它的飞行系统完全不一样啦，跟别的机种就完全不一样的东西哦，要学真的好麻烦。一大堆啊！我看了一下手册，哦，手册也是满满的上百页，看到都快傻眼。不生气了。那我先去下线，然后继续看手册。玩一个游戏嘞，搞得好像真的开飞机一样。再见，拜拜。